Hey guys, over the last few months I've been going through a bunch of your personal statements and applications for design engineering at Imperial, and it's been really fascinating going through seeing all the kind of cool projects you guys have done and all the different skills and work experiences and hobbies that you guys have. But I wanted to make this video because I've been seeing a few of the same issues popping up again and again and again, where you guys have all this great knowledge, great experience, great personalities, but you're not showcasing it particularly well in your writing. So in this video, I'm going to go through all the sort of key problems that I've seen over the last few months, reviewing personal statements, particularly with a focus on design engineering at Imperial. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll get how to write a really, really good first draft of your personal statement. And I know I hated writing personal statements. It's so awkward, it's so uncomfortable trying to figure out how to fit everything into that 4,000 character limit. I'm not going to go into how to get yourself to write it. I still am terrible at getting myself to sit down and write something like this, but what I can tell you is about how to structure it, where the sort of key points are in this personal statement, and what to expect in terms of what projects to include, how to write it, and how to get like a really good through line through this personal statement. So let's dive into it. One of the single most important parts of your personal statement is going to be the first sentence that you write. That first sentence sets the tone for the entire thing. It's your first impression. So if you have a shit first, the first sentence of your personal statement is your first impression, and it is so important to get it right and get it to be something that pulls the admission student, the reader, into your sort of frame of reference. What do I mean by that? The amount of personal statements I've read where there's been something along the lines of, I really want to study engineering so I can be academically challenged and I can solve complex real world problems, and it's the intersection of science and maths and DT or whatever. Every single person writes that. Everyone. It's ridiculous, quite frankly, how many people will write almost the same sentence, word for word, trying to show off that they're somehow different from every other engineering applicant who also clearly wants to do engineering. So what do? My personal preference is you get a little bit weird. You say something that you're pretty sure no one else could possibly say, and you make it so that people are like, how the hell did this guy go from here to there, or what is happening? I want to know more. I think my personal statement started something like, I knew I wanted to be an engineer from a young age, ever since I spent the entire summer building progressively more elaborate snail traps for my friend's garden. That is a weird sentence. That's a weird thing to do. We all know that, like, no one goes around designing elaborate slug and snail traps in friends' gardens. But I did. I did spend a summer designing ridiculous traps when I was sort of 8, I think. So I pulled that slightly strange, slightly weird, but very much engineering idea or experience that I had, and I used that to draw people in. The core idea is that first statement either needs to be off the wall, get people interested, get people curious about who you are, why you thought that was a good idea to say. If you are going to go with the off-the-wall direction with your first sentence, you need to be able to back it up. You need to be able to tie that into then the rest of your work very, very clearly. It's a high-risk, high-reward kind of strategy, I think. Otherwise, your first sentence needs to be something very personal, very much mission-driven, captures who you are, and really, really strong in terms of what you're saying. Saying, oh, my aspiration is this, I feel like that, or I would really like to do engineering. No, be really, really precise and really sort of set your flag in the ground and say, this is what I stand for. So I did my personal statement for my PhD. My first line was, fundamentally, every patient deserves to have access to the best possible healthcare, regardless of their socioeconomic status or their geographic location. That's a line in the sand. Not a very controversial line in the sand, but it's a line in the sand. But what I'm going on to say is that I did a startup where I was trying to improve the fit of PPE masks, particularly for people who are ethnic minority. I'm trying to improve the fit of NIV masks, so ventilator masks, for everyone in the world so that they're much, much cheaper for people to work with. The project I was applying for was about mass customizing prosthetics with a view to go and bring that into war-torn country where there is no money and you're just doing charitable outreach, and the financial element of that is a critical part of that whole project that typically goes underserved in a lot of literature and work in the space. So I'm saying, here's the line in the sand, and this is how I then can go and build off that into a sort of fuller personal statement. So yeah, first line, either go weird or draw a line in the sand. Those are your two options, but make sure you spend a lot of time on that first line, really, really dialing it in. Cool. The second biggest thing when you're creating a personal statement, and I don't understand how so many people miss this point, you have to get some personality in there. It's critical to get personality. It's a personal statement. You have got your academic references, you've got your grades, your predicted grades. Those are going to tell people about the academics, about how great you are at maths, further maths, physics, DT, art, whatever it is you're studying. Don't waste a bunch of time on your personal statement yapping about how great you are at maths. Yes, bring in other projects, bring in things you've done outside of school, but make sure it's personal to you. So just saying, I read this book, I read The Design of Everyday Things, I, listened to this lecture, I did this lecture series. I don't care. Quite frankly, anyone can read a book. Anyone can watch a lecture series. It doesn't actually matter. What matters is you've read this lecture series and then you're applying it to something. You've read this lecture series and you've done something with it. You have to have done something with what you've learned, with the things you've studied. So sentences like, what fascinated me about blah caused me to do blah. That's great. I want to know what fascinates you. I want to know what drives you, what gets you up in the morning, what makes you actually want to do engineering, without just you saying, I want to do engineering. I want to be able to feel when I read it, I want to feel that you want to do engineering. That's the kind of critical point of this. So use those I words. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me how excited you are to go in, or how excited you were to go and do these projects, and how excited you were when they succeeded, failed, whatever. It doesn't matter. Bring that personality, bring who you are, bring your engineering style into this piece of writing. It's so critical, and it is so underdone. It's a personal statement. Bring some personality, please. I beg you. So on a similar note, one of the other really big problems I see in people's writing when they're doing personal statements is they will tell me what to think or what they've achieved instead of showing me what they've achieved. Saying, I've seen significant improvements in my learning or my physics ability through X, or I'm a team player, or something along those lines. Anyone can say that they're a team player. Anyone can claim that they're great at self-learning and they're, super motivated and blah, blah, blah. if you say it, I am probably less likely to believe it. It's the most backwards thing, but you saying I'm a team player sets off alarm bells in my head. Because normally the kind of people who do say, oh, I'm such a great team player, I'm the best team player, are almost inevitably not. They are horrific team players. We all know someone who claims they're a team player and then cannot be on a team at all. So what you should do is you want to show people that you're a team player, show people that you can work on teams without telling them. Let them make their own assumption, let them come to their own conclusion, and then they're much more likely to believe it. So instead of saying, hey, I'm a great team player, say like, look, I did this really interesting project where I was working with this diverse group and I was managing the sort of roles or responsibilities here and blah, 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 blah. Basically showing that you worked in a team and you did so effectively. It tells me the same thing. It tells me, yes, you can work in teams. Yes, you're a team player. You understand how to sort of compromise and work within a group. But I'm coming to the conclusion, so I actually believe my own conclusion instead of having to trust that you're not lying to me. And, you know, I trust that the kind of people who watch these videos are the kind of people who wouldn't lie. I'd like to think that. But that doesn't mean that everybody is as good and honest as you are. People do lie. People regularly lie on their personal statements. I remember I had a friend, he wasn't applying to the UK, he was applying to US universities. But he was just like, yeah, I'm going to say I'm captain of the football team. Because what are they going to do? Check? No, they're not going to check. But also, maybe you shouldn't lie. But you can't stop it. But what you can do is write in a way that is more authentic, more honest, and hopefully that can come across a lot better. A bit like the first point, creating that perfect first sentence, your final sentence has an equally big job. So that final sentence, that final maybe couple sentences, should be summarising this entire essay, short essay, I guess, personal statement, really capturing who you are, what you're about, and why you should be chosen. So that last sentence or two needs to be capturing who you are, what you're about, and why you should be accepted onto this course. It's really hard. Getting the right sort of summary is a massive pain in the arse. But psychologically, it's super important that you get a really good start and a really good end. Because I can't remember the study, and I hate doing this, hands up. I'll try to find a link to the study. But people remember experiences by the start, the end, and the like peak, the emotional peak in the middle. It's those 3 points that are kind of the key things that people remember about an experience. So your first sentence needs to slap, your last sentence needs to slap, and hopefully all the content in the middle, all the meat of this personal statement does the job of improving that peak experience. But getting that last sentence is important. It needs to summarise everything they really need to know. It's the kind of thing that if instead of having the 4,000 characters or whatever it is, you had 2 sentences as your personal statement, what would you put in those 2 sentences? And don't make them massive sentences. 2 short sentences. This is who I am, this is what I'm about. That is what you should be aiming for at the end of your personal statement. So this is probably one of the harder points of writing a personal statement, is trying to find a nice through line for your work. Because typically what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have a bunch of kind of disparate projects. So I had this slug and snail trap, I had this drone building competition, I had platform diving coaching. I can't remember what else I had. you'll have a few disparate projects that you're trying to combine into this one through line. And I find it really hard. It is really hard. So when you're writing it and you start struggling trying to fit this into a nice flow, don't worry, you're not alone. What I found works quite well is I will get a bunch of record cards. So these sort of like 2.5 business cards kind of size. And on those, I will write down every single point I may or may not want to make. So I'll have a card for this drawing competition, I'll have a card for this or a card for that, whatever. And then I will literally sit down on the floor with all these cards in front of me, and I'll just keep rearranging them into different orders to try find a story that I can build around these experiences I've had. That's how I approach it. Some people do it in something like Figma, some people do it in like notes apps, whatever. But finding this story is going to be the key to making your personal statement not just feel like a random collection of like stuck on parts. You don't want it to feel like Frankenstein's monster, basically, when you're reading it. If I was doing it now, I'm looking at like my personal statement for my PhD, the story I was telling was that, hey, I'm not just your bog standard engineer. I've dedicated myself to building projects, medical projects typically, based around equality and based around sort of driving down the cost of really important care. So I had a startup building masks and things. I had a project that I did where I built like a stroke rehabilitation device, and I can build those into this narrative that says, as a whole, I'm an engineer that cares and that actually understands the real world. So I'm not just building some random bullshit, I'm building something that works in the real world. If I was looking at sort of back in high school when I was doing my personal statement for uni, I'm saying, hey, I just have this massive burning passion for creativity, and I really want to try all these different things. I want to experience all these different things. I have been going out and experiencing all these different things, but what's really driving me is trying to, create something. I like using my hands. I like using my maths. I like using the skills that I have to create something that's meaningful, that actually has an impact on humanity as a whole. So you have to find your sort of why. I think Simon Sinek has a really good video about trying to figure out why you're actually doing things. What are you trying to achieve with your life, basically? And yeah, that's a huge existential question for an 18-year-old. I know you'll get it wrong. You will get it wrong. But if you can articulate, hey, this is why I think I want to do this, really, really clearly, and have that as your through line, as your story, your main story in your personal statement, that is going to come across like you know what you're talking about. You know what you're trying to get out of this this course. You know why you're here to learn. You're motivated to learn because of what you know about yourself and what you want to achieve in the world. So getting that through line, getting some story that you're actually telling as a whole narrative rather than just like in each individual paragraph, so important and so underutilized, at least in the personal statements that I've been reviewing in the last year. So I think the last thing I want to do is make a note about projects, what you should include, what you shouldn't include, what you should consider doing or not doing. It's really hard. The long and short of it is, every single engineer I know has done a fair few projects and they want to include all the juicy details about it. The fact is you can't. It took me probably 2 years at uni before I really figured out that how to take something that I've, put my heart and soul into. I've done all this cool maths, all this cool engineering, all these cool mechanisms, blah, 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 blah. And be able to step back and say, actually, look, I don't need to include every detail in every bit of writing or project work around that. I can step back and just say, like, look, I did something really cool. Here's what it is. So don't be afraid to actually pull back and remove some projects or some things that you've achieved in order to give yourself more time or more space or a more cohesive story, which is going to have a much bigger impact than just blasting down like 1,000 different things you've done, which are all very impressive, but like as a reader, it comes across really badly. It can get really quite confusing because you're constantly jumping and switching between contexts. It can come across as really braggy. And yes, like your personal statement is a little bit of a brag, but you don't want to come across as braggy, you know? The reader wants to feel like, oh yeah, this is just a person who's excited about telling me all these cool projects that they've done and all the reasons that they really want to be a part of this course. That's what you want to come across, not just, oh yeah, this guy is completely full of himself, or this girl is completely full of herself. You probably haven't done that many things that are massively impressive. There's probably 2, 3 kind of things that really stand out as these sum me up well. These are the kind of things that like I really enjoyed doing, I did really well at, and I think showcase me as an engineer as best as possible. And then you've probably got a bunch of other things that, yeah, you did them, yeah, they were kind of cool, yeah, they were interesting, but like they're just not that important. Be prepared to absolutely ruthlessly cut down on what you've done. Really only take those key, really important steps or those really important projects and just focus on those. Just focus on those. I think I'm going to create another video, like a separate video, where I go through how to pick a project, how to make a really good project, and what goes into a really good project. Because, quite frankly, it deserves a whole video. I could talk for hours about how to go about doing a project really, really well. So I'm going to leave that there as a fairly short introduction to what you should expect when it comes to how many projects to include, but 2, 3, probably sufficient.